Hello, this podcast is recorded on Gadigal country and we pay our respects to the First Nations custodians of the land, both here and also wherever you're listening from. Annabelle Crabb.
Hello. Sorry, just drowned ratting here.
I'm keeping my raincoat on because it's just so miserable outside
you're keeping
today.
your outerwear on.
I am.
It's a great raincoat, by the way.
I like this little floral raincoat. I've been dying to see you because you know what I've been to see?
Oh, God. Look.
I'll give you a hint.
Oh, yeah, okay. So can I just say that because I've been quite busy lately, I've just been sort of watching the things that you've been getting up to, and you were trying to get someone to accompany you to Mission Impossible a couple of weeks back, and I was just like, there's nobody here but us chickens.
Do you know
I'm not saying anything.
It was so funny. So we've got our girls WhatsApp group, and I thought, look, I'm going to put this in there, but I know what's going to happen. I'm going to get saddled with a husband. And I love all those husbands, so I was happy to be saddled with one of them, and that is precisely what happened.
Yeah, but the way you galloped into it was just so kind of unwary. Like, I mean, you galloped into it with like, I've got this treat. Who wants to fight for it? And there's just crickets. And then a husband's like, oh, yeah, I
come
guess
on,
so.
he was enthusiastic.
Did he actually show
that
guy? Did he show? Did he show up?
The lads were enthusiastic for a bit of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning action, unlike the ladies.
Final, and what are the odds that this is actually the final reckoning?
Look, do you know what? Supposedly it is, but I felt like the ending it wasn't like the Bond where they actually killed him. Like it was wide open basically.
Mm-hmm.
So look, as you know, I love a film like that. It makes me feel like it's money well spent because the just spectacle is epic. So if you love a Mission Impossible kind of film like me, you will greatly enjoy it because it's great settings. There's London, there's Africa, there's some snowy, I forget where it is, somewhere in the Bering Sea. It's amazingly shot.
Forget geography.
It's amazingly shot.
And doesn't he cling to a biplane at some point?
The stunts are pretty extraordinary. He's clinging off the outside of a biplane, which apparently he actually did do in reality.
Against the advice of every single
yeah.
lawyer and safety person on set.
And the plot is, I mean, again, with all these films, you have to basically just let go of attempting to follow anything or to go, hang on a minute, but is that, they just said that they're in the Bering Sea and that the doomsday clock is ticking down. There's only 3 hours left, but now they're in Joburg. So you just have to let go of all of that.
So you have to let go of like, but hang on, wouldn't you have to go through a decompression chamber?
No. They've solved the decompression chamber by some incredible invention where Tom is like just suspended in freezing water for hours and hours, and then they stick him in some tent and then he's okay. Wakes up and has sex.
I did see the director being interviewed on 7:30 and there was a lot of discussion about some deep sea where they designed these like full face masks so that you can see Tom's face as he's going through some sort of ultra high pressure.
The sea stunts and that kind of thing, I have no idea how they did them. That was pretty extraordinary.
There was extensive discussion in this interview, so I'll send you the link, but like, yeah. It made me feel, I can't watch descriptions of how you do things deep underwater because it makes me feel like I'm going to drown.
I felt, in fact, I was talking to my friend who came with me when we were leaving and saying it just was cemented for me. I don't think I could ever be in a submarine.
I know that, like,
it's
without even asking.
Extraordinarily claustrophobic, even just kind of watching it.
Have you ever been to the inside to poke around in the sub at the Maritime Museum?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, it's interesting to have a look.
It is.
Yeah,
and I want to leave immediately. Immediately.
I did with the kids a few years ago. We were on the Great Barrier Reef and we did one of those submersibles.
Oh yeah, I've been on that.
That
was all right.
That was my outer limits of. I was counting down.
That was your Tom Cruise.
Yeah, that was
Lee's wearing a raincoat, specially made for internal wear.
And counting down the minutes and asking when are we going to be back to the mothership.
The thing that freaked me out about going through that sub at the Maritime Museum is that like there is literally a fire extinguisher every meter. Like there is no part of that sub that doesn't have just bristling with fire extinguishers. And apparently like this is the big risk of being underwater. It's fire. It's not drowning. I'm like, okay, that's 2 points of vulnerability, just that do not work well together.
absolutely
For me,
not.
like, how do I get out of this fire? Oh my God.
Plus, also, my memory's fresh of that submarine, submersible, whatever it was that those people got stuck on. Remember,
Yes.
not so long ago?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
Like, there's always a Kursk. Every generation has its, like, horrendous. Yeah.
Horrendous thing. So, with what I'm about to say next, like, just bear in mind that the context is you do have to just suspend all disbelief with this stuff and enjoy the spectacle, which I did. But there was a couple of things that I had issues with. The overall plot.
This is just beyond parody sales. Like, you walk into these things and you absolutely brief yourself and those around you that this is total bullshit. And then, invariably, you'll discover an incredibly niche boutique issue with some continuity or plausibility fail.
I think you're
Is that what's about to happen?
It is, but I think you're going to enjoy the one that I've seized on.
Spycraft? Is it Spycraft? Please let it be Spycraft.
It's in the Spycraft terrain.
You surprised
so the
me.
plot is basically, and I just listened to a podcast actually about this in reality, so it's kind of...
These are the worst.
It's kind of... So it's about basically the planet is getting taken over by the AI bots. Which,
okay.
you know,
So it's
this,
real then.
I just listened to a New York Times podcast where this guy laid out a fairly plausible scenario in which that actually happens.
Right.
So they've got a situation room that the US president is running that Tom has to go to. Now, what I realised is...
Is it in a hollowed out mountain?
It's not really clear where it is, but he does get,
So
kind of, blindfolded and taken secretly to it. So it's something like that. He gets off a military aircraft, blah, blah. Anyway, what struck me watching it is... Modern days, because of phones, computers and stuff, if you go into a situation room, I assume it's just a very boring room of people sitting on screens and stuff. But that doesn't work in a film because you need things to be visual. So they have set up in this gigantic hangar tons of those. I mean, they date from spy and defense films right back to the 1960s. You know the boards with the little battleships and the little rakes that you're moving the stuff around on?
I've always wanted one. Yep.
So
Just for my life.
The room is full of those kind of things. And I was thinking to myself, look, surely this can't be possible. So when I left, I texted a friend of mine who works in the defence/national security space, and I said, sorry to bother, I've got a question.
Sorry to bother.
I've got a question pertaining to the credibility of Mission Impossible Final Reckoning.
Sorry to bother, head of ASIO. I'm just wondering. Yeah.
I don't know what these things are called, but in the situation room, they've got these boards set up with battleships on them. And
Didn't even Google what they're called.
No, what are they called? Do
I
you
don't know.
People are pushing them around with rakes. Obviously, it's a staple of film. But surely everyone's using screens and images these days. I assume they need a visual, so they were still using that in the movie because you can't have Tom Cruise walking through a room of people just staring at computer screens. Also, a lot of people were handed printouts of critical breaking information.
So, to be clear, you're reading from the text that you sent this security boffin.
Yes.
You literally sent that ridiculous, rambling,
it's
ill-informed.
It's long-standing contact who would have enjoyed it, and so
he loved it. Lee Sales, just picturing this guy in some sort of like China briefing, and he's like, "Hang on a minute, this could be." Oh no. No, Lee Sales has been to see Mission Impossible and has some questions.
He replied that he hadn't seen the film, but it sounds silly. And he was like, where do they get the baby battleships from? Is there a baby battleship shop? Who manufactures the rakes?
There'll be a city in China that only makes those little battleships, and they'll all be bugged. That's the plot for, Beyond Redemption or whatever the next show's called.
He said, who manufactures the rakes? Are they repurposed from Zen gardens? Completely ludicrous. This world has evolved since World War II. And then I said, the president was also signing notes and sealing them with a wax seal. And next thing they're being opened on an aircraft carrier in the Bering Sea. And he goes, when was this thing set? In the last century? I'm like, present day. Anyway, so yeah, I think we can safely assume that the little boards with the little battleshipy things don't get used these days. It was just for the film.
And yet still, I love them. And
yeah, it's a great visual. I like
to think that they still exist, even though they don't. Because realistically, yeah, you're right. You're just sitting in a room that's full of screens and, not even things that go bing.
There was, before I go to my one other kind of slight issue with it, there is a thing about it that I really, really loved. I love a cameo that calls back to an earlier film where a very minor character is then elevated into a kind of significant role. So
I love that too.
Do you remember there was a very famous stunt, probably my favourite ever, in one of the Mission Impossible films where Tom Cruise goes into this lab and he descends from the ceiling on a wire and it kind of drops and he lands.
Oh yeah, no, I remember
just
that one.
His
Is
stomach.
it a lab or is it a jewel cave?
It's inside like the secret lair of the CIA or something like a
There's
secret.
there's a classic kind of lasers.
Oh, that's a different film. That's Sean Connery and Catherine Zeta-Jones. I forget what the film's called, but different film.
I feel like there's been more than one film where there's lasers.
Totally, and they've got to get through the lasers. There could have been lasers. It's like a big, long, skinny vault, and he drops, the wire lets go, and then he lands, he's like suspended horizontally, and he's about 3 centimetres above the ground.
Sure, even I remember
amazing
that one.
stunt. He lands just before he face plants onto the ground from a height of 6 metres. Anyway, and then he's suspended in air, and he hacks into the CIA's own computer to get a list of the agents.
Yeah.
And then in the course of doing it, when he kind of zips back to the top, he drops a knife, and it lands point down in the desk. And and of course it's he's come in through the roof, and it's a highly secret bunker. There's no way in, and the dude who's the computer boffin who works there, Tom Cruise, has just disappeared. He opens the door, sees a knife sticking out of his desk, and it's just
wooden desk.
I guess it's wooden. Or,
Why have they got a wooden desk in there? Like that seems a bit.
I don't know.
Because
maybe it was plastic.
How would it work? Otherwise, I don't think if you dropped a knife onto
what is a desk made out of?
Melamine.
Okay.
It's it'd be a composite wood, and no matter what your knife is, that's going to bounce off. So
Really? Okay.
that's why they've kitted out that hyper modern lab thing with like oak tabletops.
This is the kind of thing that you just need to like let go of.
Also,
right?
why is he carrying a knife?
Yeah, why was he carrying a knife? I don't know, but it made for a great stunt. Anyway, computer boffin comes in, sees the knife, and is like, oh, what the hell? Because it's one of those things you've got to go through 3 passes with a face scan, da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that guy, so you see that guy's face for like all of 30 seconds. In this film, there's the station chief on this island in the Bering Sea in the middle of nowhere is that guy because he's been banished to the Bering Sea.
Oh, that's good.
It was great.
That's
and
a great
was
callback.
Excellent.
Hang on. And so did they they can't have just assumed that everyone would facially recognise that guy, or maybe this is just my issue with facial recognition.
They have some exposition where they show and they explain. He's like, yeah, because the security in my lab was compromised. That was a real problem for me. And then Tom Cruise is like feels bad about it. And then this guy's got this very happy marriage to this Inuit woman, and he's like, I never would have met the love of my life if you hadn't, so.
Oh, so they're tying it off.
Yeah,
that's nice.
It's really well done. It's a great callback, especially because that's such a famous stunt. And of course, the dude's so minor in the greater scheme of things, but then he's elevated his quite major role in this film. So that was great.
Answer me honestly, did that give you a tiny bit of emotional closure that you heretofore had not known that you needed? Like, just to know that guy went on and met a lovely Inuit lady and got married.
Yeah, it
and
did.
is okay with the whole thing now?
Totally. I'd never thought of it at all, but it was a nice bit of closure. But it was a bit like totally different style of film, but which parodies these kind of films. Austin Powers. They used to have when they'd have a fight scene and a baddie would be killed, they'd show the baddie's wife getting the call to go, oh, John got killed in a tank full of sharks with laser beams attached to their heads today. And then she'd be like, oh no, I got to go and tell little Timmy. Why does nobody think of the families of the henchmen? So you get a bit of backstory. Anyway, last thing about Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, is I was reflecting on the fact that Tom Cruise has been, so famous since my childhood, and he's one of probably the last of the truly mega celebrity film stars left. And he's kind of...
Although it's like the ship of Theseus, like what molecules of original Tom Cruise actually still...
Completely.
A part of that physical package, do you think?
And look, everyone in the film has, because it's a lot of the originals, Ving Rhames, Simon Pegg, they're all, everyone looks old. Tom Cruise obviously doesn't look like what Tom Cruise used to look like. He looks pretty old. But he's still got that megawatt smile. It's not quite as like dazzling as when he was a youngster, but it's still pretty impressive. But the thing that's an issue, it just struck me like, I was thinking about Tom Cruise's appeal as a young man, and he had a couple of films in a row, Risky Business, Top Gun, Cocktail, where he was cocky. Like his manner, Days of Thunder, he's a cocky kind of guy.
Yeah.
And that worked really well
Maverick.
with that massive grin, right? That it just, the cockiness, the gum chewing, the sunnies, the big grin, it all worked incredibly well for him. But cockiness is the tool of a young man. Cockiness in an old man doesn't work. It's not sexy. It's sort of, it feels a little misguided or something in an older man.
Has he moderated his
Cockiness.
USP for this sort of older?
I think he has, but then therefore I think he's a little bit less megastar because
interesting.
and it just made me realise, wow, his cockiness and his ability to convey cockiness was a terrific asset for him for whatever reason. It really was part of his appeal. And as an older man, now that tool's not in his kit, it's not quite there. But having said that, one of the makeup artists at work yesterday made him up for something not long ago for the project. And she said in reality, he was unbelievably charming and just absolutely she said he was really handsome and amazing and lovely to deal with. And she was saying, I'm not really a fan. I've never really thought anything of him. And then I was kind of he walked in and it was just like, wow, this guy's just
So does he have a love interest in this film?
He does, who's another agent who I'm sure also we've seen in a previous film, but I don't remember them well enough to know. She's not, in my view, age appropriate, but she's not massively age inappropriate. She's a very...
In my view.
My humble opinion.
She could have this age use another 10 years. It's like, God.
She looks kind of...
Put some more clothes on.
She looks a good 40-ish. She's probably 40 and looks 35. She was a very beautiful woman. And he's, 65 or something, isn't he? 62 or 3?
86, I don't know. I've stopped being able to answer that question. I don't know. He's kind of moved into a realm beyond time, hasn't he? Really?
He has, yeah. Anyway.
And that hair can't be a day over.
Oh, the hair.
12.
Man, he's got a lot of hair going on too. Anyway, it was fun.
Well, look, bless him. And I just think, isn't it interesting where people who have had ludicrously long careers and could absolutely just lounge by the pool, just keep doing things.
Oh, he doesn't phone it in.
So and obviously he's on the quest for sort of new horizons in terms of dumb stunts to do and to do them himself and to make that his sort of new branding kind of thing.
Yeah.
I guess once you've moved past sort of hot young Lothario, then you just go into sort of hardcore, I will jump off a plane.
Yeah, and there's quite a few shots actually of him in his undies because he's doing some dive training. And stuff.
What?
He looks amazing for a man of his age.
So he's got the full kind of six-pack and everything happening. Like that moment in that movie you made me go and see where Hugh Jackman just takes his top off and
nothing like that body.
Right, okay.
No, he's not jacked like that. He's just a very fit-looking man in his 60s.
Yeah, all right.
You'd be happy to have that, as the youngsters say, rig.
So I love the word rig.
I like the word rig too.
I like the way the word rig is being used by the young folk.
Have you heard the term snot rocket?
Oddly enough, no.
One of my kids in the car yesterday sneezed and he goes, oh no, I've done a snot rocket. And it means when you've sneezed and something's gone.
Yeah, I'm getting what I'm getting a vague sense of what that term might denote.
The other great term I heard this week in a book I read.
Explain. I need an extra line. Explain what snot rocket might actually be. I just had a horrifying fear that it might be rude, but that's what's like, custard chucker or something.
I had another great term I heard this week in a book I'm going to talk about in a sec called, it was about if a daughter writes a memoir where she's kind of shit-canning her mum, it's called daughter boarding.
Oh, that's
so good.
Brilliant.
It's really good, isn't it?
It's pretty bold to do a daughter board.
Yeah.
I've read a few motherboardings, which also works, but not in the same way. I mean, motherboard. No,
it doesn't write. No, but
we're back in plastic boats being pushed around.
Can we just get back to snot rockets?
Yes.
Yeah.
But daughter boarding is fantastic.
Is a good term, isn't it?
Is there a particular, is there a sort of a goddess of the genre of daughter boarding? I feel like...
it'd be like Mummy Dearest or something, wouldn't it?
Joan Crawford would be involved for sure.
Yeah, any kind of family.
Right.
I guess.
Let's do some research on that.
Yeah,
we'll come back on that.
But anyway, you make a very sound point that Tom Cruise is constantly pushing the boundaries of stunts and technology and stuff.
And I think just in this conversation, I'm now delivering a theory. I'm hatching a theory like an egg in my brain, which is there's a guy who doesn't want to get old and dithery, right?
Yeah.
What if the Mission Impossible franchise is like a sort of way out machine where ultimately he dives dials it up so hard that he eventually flames out, like jumping a motorbike off a cliff or something, and that's the end of Tom Cruise. Like,
Well, I mean, I was thinking actually.
is this an advanced high-tech euthanasia plan?
I was
is what I'm
wondering
asking.
if behind his back, everyone on the film's like, oh, God damn, Tom is insisting on doing his stunts again. Now we have to pay $8 billion for insurance because it's Tom Cruise who's going up, hanging off the plane.
Right. And there's some stunt guy just going, wow,
Am I
I
gonna
got,
have to
all this surgery to look like Tom Cruise.
Yeah,
And now
am I going to have to waste a year teaching him how to hang off a plane when Bob just did it in a
Yes, you
film?
are.
Like,
Yep.
I was just wondering if actually maybe it's a massive headache for everyone that Tom insists on doing it all. I don't know.
It'd be like working for Richard Branson or, or one of those kind of tech bros who are like, no, I'll be wrestling the bear myself. "Ugh, we've got this whole bet and never mind. Or like Vladimir Putin. I think there's a type. But one thing that this conversation reminds me of is of half a film I saw recently, not because of the obvious personal connection. The half film that I saw is Baby Girl with Nicole Kidman, which, as is currently my want, I'm so deep in this documentary that I just don't think about anything else and I don't read or watch much else. But I did, on the way back from our Brisbane show to Sydney, I allowed myself to watch an unrelated film or half thereof, and it was Baby Girl. And I think, like, there's one scene in it that made me think, okay, this is a different sort of frontier pushing, but it's kind of structurally similar to what Tom Cruise is doing, ironically. And the field is erotic enterprise, right? So as we know, or as I knew about this film, despite not having seen it, and I didn't have intention to watch it, is it concerns Nicole Kidman being a sort of like hard-ass businesswoman. She's like built this empire that's sort of something about boxes being moved around factories, but she's very wealthy. And she is married to Antonio Banderas, and the movie opens with an absolute pasting. You're like, oh, this is a sex film because it's Nicole and Antonio going for it. Right. And the camera perspective is point of view Antonio. So you're looking up at Nicole Kidman having a very exhausting orgasm.
Right.
It goes on and on. Lots of hair tossing and stuff. Cool. So that gives you an idea what you're in for. But there's this scene about half an hour in where she meets and becomes erotically fascinated by an intern at her company, right? So it's a kind of cross-generational, love fest. And she has a party at her house, it's like a Christmas party or something, and all the interns and all the staff come, and he leaves his tie there, the young guy, and nothing's really happened between them. And she's picking up after the party the next morning, and she finds the tie. And then there is a sex scene with the tie. It's Nicole Kidman in an erotic encounter with a tie.
Wow. And, what does she do with it?
I'm telling you, this is frontier pushing, and I'm watching it and I'm not knowing how to feel. I'm on a plane. I'm looking around where you're like, you do that thing where you're like, oh dear God, are there children? And she is really getting it on with this tie, right?
In what way?
Well, I just like to think that the director's just gone, no rules. I go for it with this neckwear. I'd be, if I said to you, Lee Sales, here's a tie, and this guy's an intern.
Oh,
so
I've
we're
read
looking
plenty of ties.
So, wardrobe's done a good job. This kid's an intern. So the tie is like this sort of, it's a bit paisley or something, like it looks like sort of tie rack circa about 1998.
Okay.
And it's just on the floor under a coffee table or something.
Okay.
Go. How would you make love to that tie? If I just gave you a closed set, an intimacy coordinator, and just no rules.
I'm feeling so relieved that he didn't leave a pair of muddy boots or something there. But oh God, I guess you'd pick it up and just kind of
pick it up and what?
Fondle it.
Yeah. Correct. Yes.
Okay.
There's your opener. Where would the tie go?
Is it just lying there like a tie, or is there some animatronics
it doesn't
involved?
Have a lot of options. It's a tie. It's not animatronic.
Has it got a bit of heft and weight to it, like that one that you wore on election night, or?
Too soon.
No, what does
Somebody
she do?
said
with
that it looked like I was wearing a hot water bottle around my neck. And it just made me laugh so much. I nearly cried. People are so funny.
it? What does she do with it after she fondles it?
So she does a bit of like just
Face washing with it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then then it gets sort of rolled up and then it goes into the mouth quite a bit.
Right.
Right
Okay.
in. There's a lot. So I'm just, as often happens in these moments, and I don't know what's wrong with my brain, but I should just get into it
Did
and
you
see.
start laughing?
Of course, just because it was so funny, but also, you know, that time we watched Mad Men together, and
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, there was that
Don drops
epic
it.
pasting on the bearskin rug,
And
and in
Don-
the passion, the red
Yeah.
wine got like knocked over, and
Yeah.
both of us were just going, well, "Who's going to clean that up?" It was a bit like that because I was doing a bit of like, "What? Oh God, that tie's just been like cigarette butts.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
You
been
and
on
I are
the floor.
notorious for not
Christ
being able
knows
to.
where that tie's been."
You and I are notorious for like not being able to roll with that kind of stuff. We're just always too distracted.
And then, of course, I'm watching it and I'm going like, this is the most, like, that. This is acting. Like, there is some real acting going on here. It's very
Well,
impressive.
You got to respect Nicole that she is always trying new things. She doesn't like
Yeah,
sit
I mean,
back on.
who else
you
has
know.
done tie routing? I mean, nobody. But also, like, how she's in 100 million films at once.
Oh,
and
she must work so
and
hard.
right, and obviously just goes, yeah, I'm up for that.
Yeah,
Right.
I imagine she'd be your dream as a director because she's done a lot of, right from when she was quite young. She's always sort of been pretty bold in what she's prepared to do. So,
100%.
You'd
I
have to
mean,
enjoy working with her.
Well, and again, you know, could retire, could piss off and, you
Yeah.
know, just hang out and
But
but-
hasn't.
opens the tie scene and goes, yeah.
Sure.
All right.
I'll give it a
Anyway,
go.
I'm glad I wasn't sitting next to you when the tie thing happened.
Well, you know what we were like at 50 Shades of Grey, where
I
all
know.
we're like, is like,
Yeah.
well, who cleans that room?
It was
Who
disrespectful.
Yeah, totally.
But I feel like that tie would get a very high price in a charity auction. That's all I'm saying. And at some point, I'll get around to watching the second halves of all of these films that I've seen on planes, including Conclave. Don't anyone tell me what the twisty thing is at the end of
'cause
Conclave.
you're still waiting out.
Yep.
This, just to briefly mention, this conversation reminds me of a comedy special I watched on Netflix called Bangin', and the
Oh.
comedian is Nikki Glaser.
Oh, Nikki
who-
Glazer's funny.
She's hilarious. She hosted the Golden Globes this year really, really well.
That was the first I've heard of her, which makes me just.
I also
absolute-
listened to a podcast with her. She was on Goop, the Gwyneth Paltrow podcast, and
Okay.
it was excellent. It was about just the craft of how she writes gags and the awkwardness of
Oh, okay.
paying out on people because she does that comedy roast show on whatever channel it is. But
Every now and again, there's a
man, it
great
is
interview on Goop.
What was that?
Every now and again, there's a great interview on
Totally.
Goop.
And this was one of them.
That one with Oprah Winfrey about how to say no to things was,
was a good one
actually
too.
tremendous. That's about 100 years ago. But.
So Bangin' is basically about Nikki Glazer's sex life, but it's much richer than that, and she is hilarious. But it also
Has she
makes,
banged a tie? I mean, does she mention
not
that? No.
she doesn't.
There you go.
But it also makes some incredibly interesting points about relationships, women, like men. Just it's incredibly good to the degree. Like I laughed my ass off watching it, and then I felt like I need to go back and watch that from scratch because I would have missed so much great content because I was just laughing so hard. It was really, really good. Yeah, would be a good thing like for a plane. Just because it's about an hour.
Okay.
It's very diverting. It's very entertaining. So, yep, highly recommend it. I know we've spent
Might
like
treat myself for my next hour off.
4/5 of this podcast on Mission Impossible, but just a couple of things. So,
Are we going back to Mission Impossible?
No. Just
Do you think
a
there's like
couple of things
chatters
before we
out
wrap.
there who are like, I hope this one's about books? It's about Tom Cruise.
Oh, are they going to go back to cooking? Oh no, it's another action film. A couple of quick things before we sign off. I did mention a real life podcast that I'd listened to that related a bit to the content of Mission Impossible. It's a New York Times podcast called Interesting Times.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how you pronounce the guy's name. Is it Douthart, Ross Douthart, who's
yeah.
one of the columnists?
I've always said Doubt Art, but it's probably wrong.
Yep. So he does this interview with a guy who was working at OpenAI and quit because of fears of it not being done responsibly.
Yeah.
And he's put out with somebody else this kind of forecast about how things are going to go with AI. Now, I would caution people who listen to it to go, this is probably like listening to the worst of, say, a climate change, person, the worst of one of the sort of pandemic people. Like it's the extreme negative outcomes that could happen, the absolute worst case scenario.
So it's the doom scroll listen.
It's the doom scroll, AI kind of thing. But nonetheless, obviously, like sometimes all of people's worst predictions aren't brought to bear, but some of them are, and it's definitely worth, I think you've always got to prep and consider worst case scenario. And so this guy kind of goes through, these are the risks that we're looking at, and this is how AI is currently developing, where it's taking its learnings and then it's teaching itself how to do stuff better. And so he personally reckons by 2027, 2028, we're going to have these super intelligent beings that are going to ultimately supersede all of humanity.
Oh, good.
It's a depressing listen, but it's actually very interesting. And so I think if you listen to it and you sort of say to yourself, chances of this forecast happening, possible but improbable, then you can kind of just find the content sort of interesting. So yeah, that's worth a listen. Also, quickly, I watched the new Tina Fey, Steve Carell show, The Four Seasons, which is...
okay. So I've been very excited about that. Should I be excited? Oh, no. Your face says...
Yeah.
The problem is with expectations getting so high is you watch something that you're really looking forward to and it is legitimately good and you're still a bit...
Yeah. Look, I had a drink with a mate last night and he, I thought, nailed it about this show. He said, with comedians like, say, Tina Fey, you watch and you're prepped for them to be funny. But if they do something that's like a little bit funny but mostly a bit earnest, it just feels kind of slightly wrong to you, even if it's maybe okay. And I felt a bit like that was what went on here. So
What's the story?
The premise is there's these, is it 3 or 4 couples who've been great friends for decades, and twice a year they go away together for like a mini holiday, long weekend kind of thing. And one of them, he's been married for 30 years, whatever, he decides he's unhappy and he wants to leave his wife. And so he leaves his wife and then he gets fairly quickly hooks up with a younger woman who becomes his girlfriend, and the wife's very heartbroken. And the friends are kind of... It is interesting. The friends are shitty because firstly they love, I think the wife's name's Anne. They love Anne and they feel really bad for her. And they feel a bit like Steve Carell's having a midlife crisis. And the new girlfriend, when she comes on one of the holidays, because she's so much younger than everyone, she's irritating to everyone, even though she's a nice girl. But then also for the married people, they feel a bit kind of... They're quite judgy of him, but also it rattles them a bit about their own relationships, because then they feel he does seem super happy and like things are much better for him, and are we actually happy or are we kidding ourselves? So it opens this kind of fruitful areas to explore, but it doesn't quite land. It's just okay. It's not brilliant. It's just kind of okay.
And can you put your finger on what it is? Is it the writing, or is it just not you're not invested enough in the characters?
I wasn't really invested enough in the characters. It's a bit irritating. It's not really very funny. Yeah, it's just kind of privileged middle-aged people that can afford to have really nice holidays a few times a year.
Right, and you're going straight to White Lotus if you want that shit.
Yeah, exactly. If I want that, I'd rather go to White Lotus, because then it's the extremes of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
okay.
It's
right.
kind of like nice holidays, but not uber luxe holidays. Whereas for me, part of the fun of White Lotus is just going, oh, look at this resort. My God, wow. You can stay in places like that. So... yeah, it just didn't quite work, I'm afraid.
I find Steve Carell a bit hard to register sometimes, because I don't ever, like, when he was in that series about the cable news kind of, oh my God, please help me.
The Morning Wars.
That's right.
Yeah.
Morning Wars. I found him a bit difficult to register there too, because I just thought, well, you're that comedian. I just found it difficult to
right. And so then when he's it's kind of messing with your expectations a little bit as an audience member. And same with Tina Fey. Like the Tina Fey character that she's playing is not as funny and sharp as what Tina Fey actually is. So yeah, it's just kind of
okay.
doesn't.
All right. Well,
didn't
it
quite
sounds
land.
like I need to just go back and
It was
watch
just
30 Rock for
okay.
the 100 billionth time.
Oh, totally.
Because that's
30 Rock just
deep
kills
pleasure.
it. Absolutely, yeah.
I'll finish with something that is a bit AI related. I was really startled when backstage at the Brisbane show we took a photograph and then laughed at our own outfits.
Yes.
And you were just shedding kind of white tufts everywhere because you were wearing this hilarious fluffy thing. Anyway, so we do enjoy ripping the piss out of our own gear occasionally. And I asked ChatGPT, to write a roast of our outfits. And it was actually like really
It was hilarious
funny
but
and savage.
disturbing.
Yeah.
I don't think I could have written a better one
Yeah,
than
it
what
was
it delivered.
and it was delivered in like 1 second.
Yeah.
But it felt like that bot had just scraped the internet for everything that fashion criticals ever written and repackaged it. Now, I, after posting that, have actually had an interaction with the mysterious fashion critical. Do you follow? I mean, I know you're aware.
I do. I love. Yeah. I've
Even
kind
Jeremy is aware of fashion critical. I said, I'm in touch with fashion critical, and he's like, "You're what? Like, you're not that cool." I'm like, "Well, I am now, bitches." Because this is an anonymous person who, for years now, I think I first became aware of her maybe, 8 years ago, when my friend Alice Ryan was just like, "You've got to get on this, get your beak in this trough." Vicious, funny reviews of celebrity outfits. And, in the 2000 Olympics where Roy and HG just suddenly popularised all those terms like, hello boys and, all that, just with this sort of incredible ability to observe and pick out one characteristic that totally, when you look at it, you can't see anything else. That is what fashion critical is like. It's like this terrifying kind of gimlet-eyed, no, more like the eye of Sauron over fashion, where some celebrity steps out in this beautiful pink gown and fashion critical will be like, I'm getting labia. And suddenly that's all you can see.
Yeah.
Anyway, she's got a book coming out.
Awesome.
Which I think is this kind of like pictures and salty remarks.
I will read the absolute crap out of that because I can't get enough of that stuff. I love it.
And with pictures, so you can actually just thumb through it. Because, I mean, on the internet, it gets a bit lost. But to have that much sass, that much kind of salty evil contained between the hard
And
covers of a
spot
book.
on. The analysis is always like absolutely spot on and kind of nails it.
I mean, you actually just live in genuine fear of ever seriously being reviewed by this person.
Totally.
And also, they could be anywhere. Like, who are they? Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Just quickly before we sign off, a couple of things. So if you're a Sydney-based chatter, the Sydney show's on sale. If you're a Hobart-based chatter, the Hobart show's on sale.
Yeah.
We are also
They're coming out soon.
dipping a toe in the water with a couple of retreats this year. One's in the Adelaide Hills in November. One's in the Gold Coast hinterland in July.
And these are ones that you're doing. I will do some in the future when I'm not
so busy.
Quite so busy.
Yeah.
But I believe that full intimate service is included in yours. Bring your ties
Bring
if
your
you have
ties.
them.
Bring your ties, ladies. If you go to check out a website called Nourish Travel, as in like nourishing food, Nourish Travel, and it's got all of the details, the dates, the cost, what's actually involved, and all the rest of it. So hope to see you at one of our shows or at one of the retreats.
Oh, wait. I just forgot. I am going to the Adelaide Cabaret Festival. I mentioned this because I think the chatters of Adelaide need to be aware.
Yep.
That's the festival run by the spectacular Virginia Gay, friend of the podcast. And for one afternoon, I'm doing a book club with Ginny, and it is all about the Children's Bark.
Oh,
so
great.
It's just focused on one book, Children's Bark, Helen Garner, which, of course, I only read quite recently because I was saving it up. So I'm full of views about it. So,
Okay, great.
yeah. And
Do you reckon Virginia would let us record that and play it as a bonus pod?
Well, I think we'd have to be incredibly nice to Virginia and see what happens.
I think that'd be awesome.
So
if
it's
we could.
on Sunday, June I'm so bad with dates, 14th maybe? 14th? Anyway, it's that weekend. Look it up, people. Wow, I'm the best publicity operator ever. But, it'll be very cool. And there's music and singing and all sorts. Yeah.
Sounds awesome.